Now it's our turn to, sorry for the words, but put our balls on the table.
Remember, kids, this is not how you play hockey. It's just ugly.
I like it.
Screw you guys. I'm doing this.
You know what? I love ice cream too.
Go back to Canada, Guy Lafleur.
Game on!
Yeah, game on.
Hello! Ho, 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 ho. Welcome into the Hockey Show right here on My High Sports, Colorado's biggest and best live hockey radio show. JJ Jerez, your host. What a handsome guy he is. That's me. Hey, Ryan Bolding, the co-host of NHL.com. What's up, Ryan? Also handsome.
I didn't know you could do that with your voice.
What?
Anything other than the usual.
I've got a lot of tricks in my voice. I consider myself pretty good at impressions. I mean, you've shot down my impressions a lot of times. Remember?
I've never.
Cale Makar, you hated my Cale Makar impression.
I would never.
And then I did a second one. You were like, oh, that was better. That was right here on air.
Yeah, sometimes you got to workshop that stuff in private.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So, fun stuff in the hockey world this week. It's cool kind of getting to come in every Saturday and analyze the week that was, right? Because we sat here last Saturday, talked about, oh my goodness, the Florida Panthers beat the Boston Bruins. How crazy is that? Little did we know, a week later, we'd have the exact same conversation about the Florida Panthers. So fun stuff out of Florida, right? I mean, good to see an 8 seed make some noise. I think they're a fool's 8 seed, right? They just
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you think they're really an 8 seed? And I don't think so either.
Right, exactly. They're just a fun team to watch. But we'll get into them in a second. Let's get to some matinee money. Ryan, these NHL playoffs have been so unpredictable, which is what's made them fun, right?
Yeah.
It's been awesome. But at the same time, I am now in sportsbook jail from this past week.
Just like me.
Just like you. Jack Hughes didn't hit his over 2.5 shots in that game. In that last game, he only got 2. So therefore, I'm in cuffs and in the pin.
Pretty bad series from
up.
him. 1 goal, I think, in the whole series. Like, maybe fewer Chipotle salad bowls and more goals. Just saying.
So, yeah, I wanted to get to your matinee money picks because I have 0. The only thing I'm taking is the Stars. I like the Stars. I like them in the 3-way, which is in regulation. But, again, a big reason I'm in sportsbook jail right now is because of the Stars and the Kraken, still fighting back. So I don't even want to confidently make that my matinee money pick.
I had the feeling that would be the case, and so I put something in here so we could do matinee money, but I also don't have any money. Oh, look at this. Look at this, Danny. I also don't have any money on the games, on the sitch, on the happenings, because I'm just taking round 2 off is what I'm doing. And what I've decided is that you can't bet on winners. This playoffs in particular is so weird. You just can't pick winners of games. Like, you have to do kind of individual things like you were doing. So looking at that, today we've got Dallas at Seattle, Game 6. I think every game in this series has been 6 goals or more. And the over here is still 5.5 at -125. I think that's a pretty good bet. Of course, now that I've said that out loud, regardless of me putting money on it or not, it will be like a 2-1 game.
Well, that's what's interesting about this second round so far, right? Not only that series, especially the Dallas and Kraken series, but all around the second round has just been blowout after blowout after blowout. I mean, now that we're getting closer to elimination games, maybe the games are getting a little tighter, but how weird is that the second round was almost kind of a snooze fest compared to the first round because of all these blowouts?
Yeah, it's surprising, and then it's not surprising when we start talking about it, because we knew, at least in the East, that the first round was going to be just a war. Like, it was going to be ugly. It was going to be nasty. A lot of games going to Game 7. It took a while to get there. Not so much this round. And I think we're seeing the cream rise to the top. That's where Florida is maybe that deceptive faux 8 seed, right? But Carolina, just getting it done. No hesitation from them whatsoever. I think we're seeing something a bit similar from Vegas. Obviously this series could end tomorrow, but it could continue to go on. But you're starting to see those teams rise up. And Florida, I mean, we can get into it.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Let's get into Florida.
We could get into it right away. They play a pretty frustrating style of game, and it's not boring, but it's frustrating for the other team, right? They really clog the middle of the ice and don't give up a lot and attack the hell out of the puck the other end of the ice.
Their game is 100% based on effort, right? And the way they forecheck, I mean, Matt Tkachuk seemingly on the ice every other shift, and his forechecking is second to nobody in the league. I think he is hands down the best forechecker because he's ruthless, he's violent, and he wins those battles every time. I mean, he's just, I think, in my opinion, Jared Bednar's dream player, right? He's just like Arturi Lehkonen with the skill of Nathan McKinnon. You see him on the power play trying to go in between the legs and do that, swift little tricky move to try to score goals. I don't even know. What do you call it? What would you call it?
I don't know what you're talking
Swift. He's over here, gets the puck,
pulls it through shoot through his legs?
Through his legs.
I mean, he scored that way already in this playoffs.
Yeah, and he does it all the time. He's so confident and so skilled, but at the same time has the effort of a third, fourth liner.
As an aside there, have you ever tried to do that? I literally cannot.
I can't lift it.
Conceive of how to do it without tripping myself.
I can do it.
Because there's still you're still trying to snap your stick, and then that just trips me.
Right, and the motion of trying to lift it and get some power on it, I haven't figured that one out yet.
Yeah, but you're right. He's always going 100%, and I noticed him not at all for the second half of that game last night. But that doesn't mean he wasn't having an impact. What I was watching was Toronto, who was trailing from the first period, try to battle back in the game. And I had felt, and I tweeted this out even, that Toronto just seems to show this lack of urgency. And they were pushing. They were going hard. You watch the intermission reports on TNT, and they're like, this is some of the best we've seen Toronto play and all that. And I'm like, sure. But there's some casualness with the puck going on, too. And there's some bad plays. I mean, 2 different times, Toronto just gave a freebie open guy chance in the slot away while trailing in the game. There wasn't a whole lot of urgency in protecting the puck and making sure we get into the zone and go to work. And that tying it up was super impressive by Nylander. I didn't think it was a good goal from Bobrovsky, particularly.
Nope.
He seemed to be playing the wraparound and got burned by it. But I think that was part of the problem. And so not watching Florida, just watching Toronto, you're like, oh, there seems to be a lack of, real focused urgency here. On the other side, it felt like every time Toronto took a shot, there was traffic in front. Guys were getting sticks on it. It was getting tipped. Every time they took a shot, you're like, is this going to be a goal? That's their offensive dynamic, too.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to be a goal?
Yeah, it's really about just being a complete team, right? And I don't even really think Florida is that complete team. I look at the teams that are remaining, and I really only see 2 complete teams, meaning they've got the forward group, they've got the defensive unit, and their goaltending is playing where they need to be. And that's Carolina on the east, and then I see Dallas on the left. Those 2 teams, I think, are the 2 that I'm going to go ahead and put a little change on being in the final. Because, again, I think they're playing complete style of hockey, and they just have the rosters to do it. That's the difference, too, right? I think, yes, Florida's been fun. Florida's been good. But I think, depending on Radko Gudas to generate for you, I mean, he was the reason they scored that overtime goal. So I don't want to...
Plus the stick grab.
I don't want to throw stones at Radko Gudas, but the fact that he's even on the ice, I think, this deep in the playoffs kind of shows you just what their team and their philosophy is about.
And I think Paul Maurice deserves a lot of credit for what he's been able to do.
Yeah.
Toronto was a 2 seed in their division, but I think they were the 3, right, in the East. I mean, Florida's knocked off number 1 Boston. They knocked off a very potent but unable to really put it together efficiently Toronto team. But now they're running into the buzzsaw legit number 2 in the East, right? And I feel kind of similarly looking at the West, which we can get into in a bit, but Vegas is looking like the number 1 seed in the West. They're just doing the thing. I still think Edmonton has life in them, but it's hard to overcome a quick onslaught like what happened last night and them to come out on top. So this is really interesting. But Carolina, Florida to a degree, Toronto, teams that have utilized more than one goaltender, Vegas, Edmonton. It's crazy when you look at it.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Florida.
I said those first.
Oh.
It's crazy when you look at it that it's like Seattle and Dallas are the the only two teams really just we've got the one guy and we're going with him.
Mm-hmm.
No changes necessary. Those are things I'm watching when this series continues. Like what's the situation in Florida? Freddie Anderson, Antti Ranta. What's the situation with Florida? Like, does Alex Lyon get back into a game or not? I mean, Bobrovsky has been unbelievable.
But that'll dry up.
Yeah.
And like you said, that goal from Willie Nylander, I think, was terrible on Bobrovsky's part. Willie Nylander walking in as a right-handed shot. The only spot he can shoot is going to be near side. So protect the near side. Don't drop down on your knee and open that window, right?
Yeah, I saw some analysis of this because, and I'm in agreement there, and I'm in agreement on Nylander took the same shot a minute or two before that, maybe a shift before that, and it went off of Bobrovsky, out of the zone, all the way into Toronto's far corner of their own zone. And I was like, there's like 6 minutes left in the game, you're pushing, you're down a goal. That's like the worst case scenario, kind of unacceptable shot, short of just missing the net and having that happen, that you could have. And so it seemed to be like the consensus was that Bobrovsky knew that had happened last time and was like, there's no way he's going to do it a second time. Henrik Lundqvist at intermission said the second his glove came down to push up against the post, boom, goal, which is outstanding vision from Nylander on that play.
Yeah, but it's a simple just drop the other knee, keep your glove hand high, and you save that no problem without any effort. How fun is it, though, to watch the Toronto fan base and GM, they kept cutting to Kyle Dubas, just freak out during the entire game. I mean, they were so stressed.
All I could think of is, like, could you imagine if Joe Sakic was up there yelling at the overturned goal?
And then the no goal, right? That's what I was
no-goal.
going to get into.
When he's screaming up there, I'm like, I mean, they cut to Florida's booth. You got Roberto Luongo and everybody in there after Toronto tied it. Ice cold.
Mm-hmm.
Not a reaction at all.
Indeed. But what a fun series that was, and congrats to the Florida Panthers moving on to the third round when nobody thought they could do it. I mean, just making it entertaining stuff, and that's why we watch sports, right? And that's why we try to bet very little money, because the unpredictability can leave you maybe facing pre-foreclosure.
Savage.
Yeah, so that'll do it. We'll get back in here after the break and talk some Avalanche and the Landeskog situation. Of course, we're going to be joined by two Avalanche insiders again.
And we got spicy comments from Alex Pietrangelo coming off his one-game suspension.
So that'll do it. We'll be right back on the Hockey Show here on Mile High Sports. JJ Jerez, Ryan Boulding of NHL.com, and Coach Bailey behind the glass. We'll be right back.
Right now, it's 16 minutes past the big hour. Is that not right, Mr. Scream? Great, good stuff. I think people are getting really cranked.
Welcome back.
That was like perfect mixing, Danny.
That was
expert level.
I mean, sometimes I wish we had a camera on him, because he's literally back there like a DJ performing a show, right? He's got
changing
the cameras,
camera angles,
changing the music, turning down, making sure the guest is on the phone,
scratching discs.
He's doing everything. He even sometimes sits there and nods his head like, ooh, yeah.
DJ.
I turned my headphones up for this one because I like this song. This was my request coming in, and then Mr. Scream almost blew out my eardrums.
Yeah, that happens. Danny, if you had a DJ name, what would it be?
Put him on the spot.
Dang, that's a tough question. I'm gonna have to give it some thought.
Yeah, think about it.
DJ Coach Bailey. Lee.
Pew, 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 pew.
All right, well, there's some Avalanche news to get to, and I feel like this always happens to us, right? Ever since our days of podcasting together, maybe 5-6 years ago, we'd be like, oh, man, what are we even supposed to talk about? Boom, the Avalanche come out and give us something to talk about every time.
It's crazy. I thought I was done writing for the offseason until rookie camp or whatever, and here we go.
Yep.
Can you write about this Landeskog news? And I'm like, man, every time I send something into the league now, I'm like, never a dull moment in Colorado.
Yep. So let's get into the Landeskog news. Very unfortunate stuff for Colorado and for Gabe Landeskog, right? I mean, him having to he had to sit there and tell us that he wasn't going to be in the playoffs. You know that hurt him. And then a week after the playoffs, he has to come out and tell us he won't be a part of next season whatsoever. So I guess your initial reactions, your thoughts, and just what do you think this means for Landy?
I was concerned at the outset that this could be something that could be career-ending, or that this could be something that really lingers, right?
Knees are no joke.
Yeah. Was it head, fingers, knees, and toes?
Mm-hmm. Shoulders?
Head, shoulders. That makes way more sense than fingers. I couldn't think of it. I'm old. Yeah, I think, he has his initial press conference. He's missing the playoffs. This is our first chance to get into it. Finally, we have some conclusion to the Gabe Landeskog saga. I asked the second question. Are you concerned that this could linger into next season or beyond? And he said yes, which I appreciated his candor there. Here we are, not very far removed, a month removed from that. I mean, basically, not even. And he's already going to miss the entirety of next year. And that's a huge loss for this team. But a benefit in that they know they don't have him for the regular season. Now they can make plans. Chris McFarland maintained that Landeskog's situation didn't hurt him at the trade deadline. I'm inclined to believe, let's say 70 to 75% of that. I do think it hurt, not knowing whether he could play or not knowing what their financial situation would be. I also am probably pretty willing to bet that nobody wanted to really offer anything good to the Avalanche without it really being expensive. But here we are. He's going to get cartilage transplant surgery and did on Wednesday. What is your reaction when you see that news?
I mean, it's not good stuff, right? I think, first of all, kind of like you said, you're inclined to believe 75% of the trade deadline hoopla we were given. I'm inclined to believe very little, because even in that initial press conference with Landy before the playoffs, he was asked if he was going to play next year, and he said yes. He was confident about that, right? But then we go back to this most recent press conference. He says, I've been doing this research for months. We've been looking into this for a long time. So I'm like, all right, so at what point did you actually know you weren't going to be playing next year? Because something tells me it was way back in Christmas time. But
yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I think we've talked about this. Jared Bednar did a good job of setting expectations at the start of the year. It was a short off season. We've got guys that are banged up. We're going to manage workloads. I don't think they did that very well. But now we're at this point where they are not managing expectations very well. Well, I'm just going to miss the playoffs. Now I'm going to miss the next season. It's like, yeah, what's going on here?
And my first reaction, too, is, I'm a curious guy. So I'm not just going to look at Twitter and be like, I see everybody tweeting at the exact same time that he's going to get knee cartilage replacement. What I started doing was looking into knee cartilage replacement. What does that entail? What goes into that? And I found a perfect YouTube video done by a doctor. I hope you guys all saw it. I tweeted it out. And in this YouTube video, the doctor breaks down Lonzo Ball's cartilage replacement. And at the end of it, he says, I know Gabe Landeskog spewed out 85% success. This doctor said 74%. And he said that measurement of success isn't necessarily going back into a game, jumping, running. That measurement of success is being able to walk again comfortably without pain. So while, yes, Gabe Landeskog has very high hopes to return to hockey, I'm still not I guess I don't want to say on board. Of course I'm on board with Landeskog coming back, but I'm not on the same page as him. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be nearly as easy as everybody thinks. You get the surgery, you get some rehab, and then you're back on the ice ready to go. No. If this doctor says that the success is measured on a person or an athlete's comfort when they're walking and to do it pain-free, that's how they say this is okay. I don't know. I mean, cartilage isn't a muscle, right? You can't rip cartilage, put it back in, and then strengthen it, right? The cartilage is going to be the cartilage no matter what. So I don't know how you rehab a knee like this. You just hope that you can walk comfortably. If you can walk comfortably, maybe you can skate comfortably. But we both know, Ryan, walking and skating are two different things. Yeah, I busted my ankle over Christmas break. Still hurts. Walking is a pain in the butt for me. Skating, no problem, right? But maybe your knee is a completely different thing. You could say, hey, knee, I can walk just fine. But when I get on skates, when I go to stop, or when I go to push off of one leg over the other, I can't do it. So I'm just hoping the guy can walk again pain-free.
There's a couple things that I don't think have been asked that should have been. One I've mulled over multiple times, and that is, what is your quality of life at this moment away from the rink? And I don't know if that's something that is worth asking, because I don't know if that's something worth him answering, because it doesn't pertain to his on-ice athletic ability. And that's kind of the newsworthy side of all of this, right? Like, what he does in his personal life isn't really any of our business.
See Val Nichushkin.
But there is a concern. I disagree on some of that, but there is a concern there, that I've known this person for a long time. So there's an interpersonal, wanting to make sure that they're okay, but also wanting to know how does that affect your on-ice production, right? So is he able to walk okay? Is he able to go upstairs? Is he able to pick up his kits? Is he able to drive, for example, right? Those things I think are important to know, but not necessarily something that is worth divulging from his end. And then the other aspect is, have any of these previous surgeries been unsuccessful? Are there any botched surgeries in here? Are there any surgeries that resulted in a further complication instead of a fix? And that hasn't been asked, and I don't know if they would say, right? Because then you're entering legal liability situations with doctors and malpractice and all of that. Those are kind of the two things I have questions about.
Or even a step further, I think about whatever procedure he had done before last year's playoffs. And my thought isn't, was that procedure botched? My thought is, did you rush back? Did you not give it time to heal? Did you not give it time to rehab?
Yes.
And you just said, playoff time, I'm ready to go. I don't care what happens. And, this is the cost of making that sacrifice.
And you talk about the procedure itself. It's uncommon for elite athletes, and it's very uncommon at the NHL level. Now, a former NHL player, Mark Mathot, tweeted immediately upon the news that he had that surgery and he had been unable to return to play. I know he's went on Altitude Sports Radio. I didn't catch it, haven't heard it, but I think it ties back into what you were talking about. The important part. Landeskog said over 85% success rate, right? Your guy said 74. The Denver Post, I recommend everybody go and read Bennett Durando's article about this. He talked to 3 doctors, including one who trained under and studied under Brian Cole, who did Landeskog surgery, Rachel Frank. She said, the surgery is incredibly successful, but you're measuring success based on your ability to walk pain-free, go up and down stairs pain-free, to have a quality of life that doesn't involve playing at the pinnacle of your sport, right? That's not how they measure success. So there's just not enough data points about how successful this can be for elite athletes, because they are utilizing their bodies in ways that normal people are not. And that's the thing that I think everybody needs to consider. That's the scariest part about this, is he's confident and he has this eternal enthusiasm and optimism about him, but that doesn't mean anything to body recovery. And what we're looking at is a situation where they take cartilage either from a cadaver or a different part of his body, graft it in, and it has to grow and bond with his knee, with his body. It has to be a match. Yeah. It's like having a liver transplant.
Mm-hmm.
People can have a rejected liver transplant. So there's essentially like a hole under his kneecap in his knee where they need to graft new cartilage, and it has to grow into the right spot. And so, I think there are questions from people and conversations I've had with people who have had cartilage operations and knee surgeries where they're like, I just don't have cartilage in my knee anymore. And you can see, as those people age, how painful it can be, how hard it is to walk, limps, those kinds of things. And the question is, can't he just play without cartilage in his knee? And I think we saw that to a degree, but now the question is, how bloody painful is that to do? And we watched him rehab, and everybody threw out there looking good. He's close opinions. We never saw him start and stop on his right leg.
I think he looked awful.
I didn't think he looked very good. And he said it's really hard to rehab in the public eye when everybody's grading your recovery insufficiently or incorrectly. But the issue remains, he never started and stopped on his right leg. Either he didn't have confidence in it or it hurt like hell. And, I think you can only play through an injury so much. It's one thing to play through 21 games, which is a long time, couple months through an injury, but you're doing it every other day for 20 minutes a night and probably on copious amounts of drugs and painkillers. It's another thing to do it all season long for however many years are left in your career. It's a mess. It's really a mess. I appreciated, I asked him, okay, you said you've been in contact with Lonzo Ball. Can you tell us more about the nature of those conversations? Have you talked to anybody else like Mark Mathot? And he said, mainly he iterated that Lonzo Ball had just had this done, 2 months ago? A little under that. So he's slightly ahead of Landeskog in the recovery process, which is great because it's charting a course. Mark Mathot said it was the worst rehab from an injury he's basically had. And Landeskog just said it was nice to talk to somebody who knows what I'm going through, who can relate to the specific situation, the struggles, the setbacks, all of that. So I imagine, when you're dealing with a disease, an injury, an illness, whatever, it's nice to commiserate with somebody who gets it exactly. Mm-hmm. And so it's good that he has that kind of, network around him, that kind of support emotionally. But I do think it's a real concern here, and his absence really hurts this team. It was evident all season long.
I think one thing's for sure is we'll never see the same version of Gabe Landeskog that we're used to. You have to think of his style of game, right? He loves to muck it up. He's like Matt Tkachuk that we talked about in the first segment here. He loves to go behind the net. He loves to go in the corners. He loves to battle in front of the net. All that sounds very hard if your knee isn't where you want it to be. So
when lots of people are like, why can't we just use him in the playoffs and stick him in front of the net and let him just tip pucks? And I'm like, first you got to get there.
Well, then you're 5-on-4 the other way.
Second, you got to take the punishment. And then, it works if you're Leon Draisaitl on the power play. It didn't work last year if you're Leon Draisaitl anywhere else on the ice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bad stuff, but all we can do is just hope for the best and follow the story and follow his recovery and see if it gets to where he needs to be. If not, it's very unfortunate, but that's the nature of sports, right? I mean, I think everybody's remembering Peter Forsberg and how he ended his career and ended his time with the Avalanche. All that's very sad. You'd hate to see it happen again to Gabe Landeskog, but again, that's the NHL. Mark Mathot had to have it happen to him too, right? So yeah, I guess a downtrodden segment there. Sad energy.
Yeah. I mean, it's the story, and it is what it is.
Nothing but bad news has surrounded the Avalanche these last month and a half, right? So we'll see what the next season brings, and a big offseason, important offseason. They have a lot of opportunity and can have some wiggle room to improve the team.
This team's going to look very different.
All right, let's get back into the NHL after the break here and look around the rest of the playoffs because we need to lighten up the mood in here, bring up the energy levels. Now, Brian, don't cry, man. Don't cry, bud. It's all right. He's going to be okay. He'll be with the team no matter what, whether as a player or a front office guy. But we'll be back here on the Hockey Show. This is Mile High Sports with JJ, Ryan, Danny Bailey. We'll be back after the break.
Let's go, Colorado!
Welcome back. This is the Hockey Show, Colorado's biggest and best live hockey radio show. JJ Jerez, Ryan Bolding. I got some Lil Wayne per my request. Brian. So Lil Wayne was in town on Sunday night. Me, being the Lil Wayne fan that I am, about 3 months ago, purchased tickets.
I didn't know you did concerts.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know if it was COVID, but the thought of going, because it was at the Fillmore, right? A small venue, very intimate.
I love the Fillmore.
Lil Wayne, a big, very well-known across the globe star. I'm like, that place is going to be packed. And again, I don't know if it was COVID or what happened to me, but just the simple thought of being in a crowd like that, I sold my tickets.
Wow.
I
thought you were going to say because you knew it wasn't going to start until 10 o'clock.
I'm just too old. I said, that sounds terrible. I have a baby now. I'm like, I don't want to leave the baby for that long. It's a Sunday night. We've been up so late for all these NHL games and even NBA playoff games. I'm like, it's a Sunday night. I want to get to bed early. So I'm a little bit disappointed that I missed the Lil Wayne concert. I've seen him before, fortunately, so it's not something I had to scratch off my list. And it was one of those, when hip-hop artists bring out a band and you've got drums and a guitar, and it's like...
Yeah, I've seen Atmosphere that way at the Fillmore with a full band.
This isn't the way I know this song. Or don't you hate when artists go out and sing a song differently than the way they recorded it, whether it's just, minor changes here and there, and you're trying to sing along, but you're getting it wrong because suddenly they switched it up. I hate that.
I think you see that more, too, as artists age, and maybe they can't,
hit the same notes.
Well, or for me, maybe it's screaming here or there or whatever. Like before I left, actually, I saw Serge Tankian, the lead singer of System of a Down, filmed a reel of himself doing a mic check, a sound check before they play today in Vegas, and he was singing. I can't think of the song. It's a Tapeworm song, but he was holding his phone in his hand, and he was singing it more than kind of scream singing it, like the original version. And you think, oh, maybe it's because they're getting older. But yeah, I would rather, though, for hip hop or rap, I would rather a live band than like the hype man who just like shouts the verse or the chorus or whatever.
That too. Yeah.
Like just half of the sentence. Yeah, exactly. I hate that. I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah,
Why?
I agree. Or when a lot of hip hop artists too, they'll just play the song, right, and have their original vocals, and then they'll just like sometimes, sometimes sing with it, and sometimes not.
Yeah, boo that, man.
Yeah, I woke up Monday morning feeling no regrets at all. So let's get into some more playoff hockey. I want to get into the Vegas-Edmonton series. I know you touched on it a little bit in the first segment, but my point about seeing two complete teams left in the playoffs, Dallas and Carolina, that was a shot directly at these two teams, the Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers. Why? Because I just think they're playing sloppy hockey. They're playing very undisciplined, and neither of them strike me as a team that has the full package. I look at the Edmonton Oilers, and I see a one-trick pony. Playoff, or power play goals, right? 8 of their 17 goals this series have been on the power play. 8.
Well, and part of that is Vegas taking penalties.
Exactly. They're playing very undisciplined. You saw last night, Vegas up 4-2, and what happens? They get a major penalty.
Yep.
The last team you want to let be on the power play, the Edmonton Oilers. Oilers score on the ensuing power play. It's suddenly 4-3. Your back's against the wall, and everything's a mess. So I think between these two teams, it's been fun to watch. You love the hatred building up between the two. You love the physicality. But as far as championship hockey, I don't think either of them are displaying what it takes to have that.
Yeah, I don't totally agree in terms of the sloppiness completely as an organizational identity for either team, but I do think they're both playing this kind of run and gun open style of hockey where you're trying to keep track of guys like Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and that can create some mismatches and opportunities. But I do agree. Vegas had taken like at least one penalty in the first period in every game until last night, and they hadn't taken, I think, a penalty that whole game until the Colasar penalty. Maybe one before that. Maybe there's a high stick before that. So they were figuring it out, but it gets kind of sloppy. But on the other hand, against Edmonton, Vegas scored like 3 goals in 89 seconds or something. That's game right there. That's just burst in the middle of this breakdown.
And more to my point, all of the goals that the Edmonton Oilers scored yesterday, all on the power play.
Right.
The one game they got their butts kicked 5-1, not a single power play goal. So they are so reliant on this power play.
Yeah, they're struggling 5-on-5.
If Vegas can just wake up and not take these stupid penalties, and they're stupid penalties, right? They're not hard-working penalties. They're not good defensive zone effort penalties. They're dumb. They're retaliatory. And look at Alex Pietrangelo.
That penalty was so egregious. He just skated like 10 feet with his stick up in the air above his head. Like he was literally going to chop lumber and just chopped Draisaitl's forearm. And you're like, man, if that broke his forearm, what's the suspension look like there? It just was so unnecessary. I get being mad. Usually when something happens to me in a game and I get really upset and I'm like, I'm going to go hit the next guy who touches the puck or whatever, it may be egregious, but it's not usually that egregious.
And there's times where you're, so mad that you do something just off the whim and you're like, oh shoot, I maybe crossed the line there. But like you said, he had time. He approached this and he this was premeditated. He said, if I see him in the corner, I'm just going to take a hack at his forearm.
It's funny you called it premeditated because we were talking about the comments Pietrangelo made today. Jesse Granger of The Athletic putting them out that Pietrangelo said what Edmonton has been doing to him has been premeditated, in reference to hitting him hard, going after him, maybe Evander Kane hitting him from behind. I didn't really have as much of an issue with that play in particular. But I think that's a two-way street. And you've seen it. Guys are going after Nurse. Guys on Seattle were going after Cale Makar, Devon Taves. You see it in every series. The plan is hit the defenseman. I used to watch Ryan Suter on the Wild, and he would log 25, 27 minutes a game, but he would just cough up the puck if he was going to take a big hit. And the reason, in my mind, was he can't play 27 minutes a game effectively if he's getting hit every time he touches the puck, and he's getting hit hard. So sometimes he's got to give up the puck so he can stay playing, right? And that's the strategy for every team is you want to make the defenseman turn, you want to make them skate, and you want to hit them.
I think one guy who's been kind of flying under the radar as far as media conversations, maybe even tweets out there, just overall mentions, is Jack Eichel, right? I think he's been a difference maker, and he's been a guy that hasn't been necessarily talked about. I mean, first of all, when he scores, his celebrations are fantastic. Those are fun to see. But I don't think we expected this from Jack Eichel, and now you see Jack Eichel really performing as somebody literally just now tweets about him.
Katie Baker from The Ringer literally tweeted, as JJ saying that, Jack Eichel finally made the postseason and now has 13 points in 10 games. Jack Eichel is finding his piece.
Eichel ande.
Nice.
Do you know that one?
I know the Los Lobos version.
Your grandma and my grandma.
I kind of want Edmonton to win just because they play La Bamba by Los Lobos when they win. And that was a whole to-do last year, I believe, the La Bamba Los Lobos thing. You can go look it up on the internet. This is Jack Eichel's first playoffs. Mm-hmm. In all of his years in the league. I think while maybe not discussed, our expectations on him being a superstar, being a very high draft pick, and he's kind of rising to the occasion. That's where we talked about last week, and my Kentucky Derby pick was Vegas. I'm like, I think they have all the pieces. I mean, Mark Stone playing very well, and you can say what you want about the surgeries and the cap and all of that. I don't really believe it's this nefarious, Illuminati plot. I just think the man had 2 back surgeries, and the time they did it with timing for the playoffs in mind, and that's smart to do. He's been impressive. Had a big goal last night using that long reach. Has the biggest knob on his stick of any player in the NHL.
Are you giggling
by far.
at Bissonnette's comments?
Yeah, I was thinking Paul Bissonnette last night on the intermission show said, what did he say? Check out the knob on that guy?
Yeah. And you could tell, I don't know if somebody on TNT said something in their ears because they all went silent for a second, and then Bissonnette picks up his cup and does an uncomfortable, oops, what did I just
Everybody was giggling, yeah. Look at the knob on that guy. But he does. Every time I see his stick on the bench, I'm like, good Lord.
Yeah, it's
like 2 rolls of tape plus that, foam wrap, grippy wrap stuff on it.
As far as goaltending, though, I don't know what Edmonton needs to do, because I think they're suddenly in a spot where they are questioning Stuart Skinner but don't necessarily have the confidence in Jack Campbell. But I know one thing's for sure. If they switch their goaltender for this game 6, it's going to be over for them. I think right now you have to ride or die with what you've got, and can't take a chance on Jack Campbell at this moment.
I was talking about this last night. I was like, man, Jacob Wall is finishing this series for Toronto, right?
But basically their third-string goalie, right?
Yeah, called up from the Marlies, and you're like, Matt Murray was a poor decision when they made it, and it was a poor decision when they left the playoffs, and that's not a commentary on him. It's just a commentary on his sustainability and his health, his body holding up. It was just a bad situation, and Samsonov, I think, is a fine, good goalie. That was a good pick, right? When you go to Edmonton, and Edmonton signed Jack Campbell, and you're like, the dude couldn't get it done in Toronto.
Dumb.
This is questionable. Mm-hmm. They're not where they are without Stuart Skinner. I think you need to trust in Stuart Skinner. I do think he's made some questionable decisions goaltending. He is a rookie in the NHL, even if he's an older one. I do think that not all of it is his fault. And when the team breaks down and there's these situations where he's expecting help that he's not getting because it's the Oilers, and we've seen that for years, maybe he overdoes it. He's too scrambly, right? But now you've got Jack Campbell as your backup to a rookie, and that says everything you need to know about how the season went for Jack Campbell. And that's no disrespect to him either. But it's just those kinds of things around the league. I mean, even New Jersey ended up going to their third-string goalie in Akira Schmidt, and he was unbelievable, lights out. We talked about it early on. Carolina, They even have Kochetkov, who played a major part of the season as the third-string goalie and had success. What do you do there? Can Freddie Anderson stay healthy?
Part of me wonders how many of these teams are looking at last year's Avalanche and saying Darcy Kemper wasn't phenomenal, and they got it done. We can get it done with a guy like Stuart Skinner. We can get it done with a guy like Garrett Wall.
I maintain that if you have the right defensive system for a goalie to thrive, a goalie will thrive. People don't think Georgiev did enough.
Thank you. Now we're back to full package. Who's got the full package? In my opinion, only two teams have the defensive structure. They have, because you look at Carolina and their goalies aren't amazing, but they have the defensive structure.
So Carolina's one.
And then you look at Dallas. They do have a good goalie, and they have the defensive structure to protect it.
I think Vegas is the third team, though, and this is why. How many goalies did they use in the regular season?
45.
And they still finished first in the West. Now, we know the West was weaker, but Carolina, how many goalies did they use in the regular season?
17.
And look at where they are. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong about Dallas. I think you're very right about Dallas, but I also think Ottinger is the best goalie left standing, for sure, and was one of the best goalies entering the postseason. I'll say that, too, so it's not a disservice to his ability. I do think Dallas has the right system to support Ottinger. And Dallas, the concern has always been, can they score goals? And they have done that pretty well in this series. But I think Vegas, even in this series, has lost goalies to injury, just like all season long, still winning. Aiden Hill comes in, plays well, still winning. The crazy thing to me, Jonathan Quick is their third-string goalie. He's not even been dressing. Maybe he's been maybe backed up Hill last night. I don't know. I was, casually paying attention. But, that's your third goalie there. I think they have it. I think Carolina has it. I think Dallas has it. And then there's, shout out to Philip Grubauer, who has just been lights out as these playoffs have gone on. I thought he was real shaky in the first round. I think he's been good.
I'm buying what you're selling. I like that take on Vegas. They're almost this year's Colorado Avalanche. So,
but mostly just in net.
I still don't see them getting past Dallas, but that'd be a fun matchup. If that's a semifinal, we're here Saturday talking about Dallas and Vegas, and then Carolina and Florida. I think all hockey fans would be very happy to watch both of those series.
Yeah.
All right, we're flying through the show here. We got one more segment for you, so stick around for the break. This is the Hockey Show. I'm JJ Jerez, Brian Bolding over here, Danny Bailey behind the glass. Colorado's biggest and best live hockey radio show. We'll be right back.
I play hockey and I fornicate because those are the two most fun things in cold weather.
Great, Ryan.
It's a slow start. I should have warned Danny.
Yeah.
It's been a busy day for all of us.
You're right. Man, I definitely like my intro songs better.
I'm still feeling out this song. It's new.
Who is it?
Queens of the Stone Age.
Never heard of them.
Learn them. Know them.
I'd rather not.
Go see them at Red Rocks.
Definitely won't go to the Fillmore, that's for sure. But welcome back. This is the Hockey Show. Colorado's biggest and best live hockey radio show. What do we talk about? There's lots to get into still, I guess. I really think the big news of the week around the NHL that wasn't playoff related, yes, Gabriel Landeskog was big for us, but the Connor Bedard situation and the NHL draft, right? I think that, A, raised a lot of suspicious eyebrows around the league, and B, just really upset a lot of people considering what has gone on within the Blackhawks organization the last couple years. Now suddenly, whether intentionally or not, are being rewarded with one of the best draft picks to ever, not ever, but to come out in a long time. It's probably since Connor McDavid. Potentially, of course. You can't guarantee anything. But, what did you think about Chicago miraculously winning the first place draft pick?
I do feel like they should not have been eligible because of what unfolded with the Kyle Beach stuff. And the way that they handled it.
So you think they shouldn't have had a lottery ball at all? Just slap them in number 15.
Yeah. Or don't even give them a first-round pick. You forfeit this. Don't forget, Arizona lost picks for, having their own draft combine, basically, having workouts with prospects. Not allowed. Lost picks. It's not like this is out of left field. There is precedent for this kind of thing. I just don't think the owner cares. We've seen that when he got all contentious about it with Mark Lazarus and a town hall. It cost Joel Quenneville his job, cost Stan Bowman his job. Both of them have to go through Gary Bettman to get back into the league. It sounds like that is unlikely to occur anytime soon.
I don't know. I've heard Joel Quenneville's name get thrown around quite frequently.
Yes. We have seen, though, reports that Gary Bettman hasn't spoken with him, and there's nothing on the books to speak with him.
But he is currently, doing speeches and touring to, give junior teams, better advice to handle a situation like that and whatnot. So, in my mind, he's putting in the
rehabilitation
public service,
tour. Yeah,
right?
I say that I liked him as a coach and had a familial connection to him that didn't involve me, so I wasn't a part of that. But I do think he has work to do to get back to the league, and I think that the way he handled it was not great. I don't think the onus is on him as much as it is on Stan Bowman. But the organization was involved. The organization didn't handle it properly. The organization, I don't know, has done the work since then, and now they get rewarded with a generational talent. It's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. I don't think it's rigged for Chicago to get this guy.
I do.
It's just fancy coincidence that Taves and Kane leave the organization and then this happens. But to me, should they have been eligible for the opportunity? No.
You know me, Ryan. I've been diving really deep into the NBA and the ref controversy, and I guess the way they kind of manipulate their organization, or at least are alleged to in the past, right? David Stern, the former commissioner of the NBA, really being the guy that drove all of that. And a lot of it was to protect the business of the NBA, right? NBA fans want to see the Lakers in the final more than they want to see the Sacramento Kings in the final. Coincidentally, the LA Lakers now in the semifinal in the NBA after, what were they, Danny, an 8 seed? Even less? They were one of the play-in teams.
Yep.
So suddenly they're in the Western Conference final. Wow, weird. The LA Lakers, again, are going to draw big numbers for the playoffs.
But the Miami Heat were an 8 seed.
Yeah, no, I got you. But I think Miami's a pretty big draw, too. I think that's, especially regionally, what they've done in the past. And Gary Bettman learned everything he knows from David Stern. He used to work in the NBA. And I think Gary Bettman has a certain sense of ability to protect the business.
Well, it's his job.
The NHL profits way more with Chicago being good than it would Anaheim, Arizona. What were some of the other front runners?
Yeah, but if that's the case, how do we end up with a Carolina Hurricanes, Florida Panthers Eastern Conference Final? Andrew Raycroft, former Colorado Avalanche goalie, tweeted today, Carolina versus Florida Eastern Conference Final is a disaster if you are hoping for a higher salary cap.
I don't think the manipulation of the NHL goes as far as it does in the NBA, where they're literally rigging games.
But I mean, if you're staging anything to the advantage of the league, why are you just doing it with drafts?
Well,
why aren't you doing it with games?
Who's to say that they're not fully?
If it's a conspiracy, it's a conspiracy all around.
I think it's obvious, and I heard, what was it, Wyshynski's point, saying if this was rigged, they would give it to Arizona because Arizona needs a new. But I don't fully believe that, because Arizona. How many times have you gone to an Avalanche game versus the Coyotes and half of the building is Arizona Coyote fans? 0 times.
Yeah.
But you do that around the league for the Blackhawks. There's so many Blackhawks fans out there that at least a relevant Blackhawks team, rather than a tanking Blackhawks team, is going to bring more money to the NHL, especially in this era that we're in where they're trying to recover from COVID and trying to bring in more money. Then there was some suspicious activity with the Columbus Blue Jackets and Kevin Weeks falsely reporting where they were landing in the draft lottery.
I mean, he didn't falsely report it. It was an edited video.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever edited it didn't cut his audio of revealing the next pick before they went to commercial break. They finished third.
I just don't believe in coincidences, and when something smells fishy, it usually is fish.
Yeah. This is
usually
ridiculous. But you want to talk about teams that have fans in other cities? I mean, Chicago is a massively bigger city than Phoenix.
Okay. which means more
Philly,
money.
Pittsburgh, larger cities,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those people come out and live here. I don't necessarily know that it's all travel. I think it's a lot of transplant.
So you don't think that if the Blackhawks are in the final, it's a better drawn final than, say, if Vancouver's in it?
Well, right now, if we want to compare Chicago to Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
Arizona's playing in a building that holds 5,000 fans.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago has 5 levels. in their
Arizona's
building.
circling the drain.
Well, they're looking for a new building. I don't think they're circling the drain. I just think that they have been a victim of circumstances, whether created by themselves or not. Right? They've been at odds with their building in Glendale for like as long as they've been a team.
I just don't buy it. I think it's
I get it. I
it's
just
too
think if
suspicious.
there's, I think it's too convenient of an argument to say there's a conspiracy here, but not here. I think if there was the conspiracy, it would be in all facets.
Well, I'm not going to say that there's not conspiracy here. There's just nothing I can say to, confidently bring up that point. But this, I feel like I can confidently say, okay, this matches up. I'm gonna bring this public because I have way more crazy thoughts in my head that I don't say on the radio show or the podcast. Yeah. Right?
Let's keep them that way.
There's a certain time.
QMJHL and on over here.
There's a certain point where I think it needs to be brought to light. I mean, I don't know. I just want to call a spade, and I don't believe in coincidences. If everybody else wants to be naive and say, oh, I don't see it, I don't believe in it, that's not the way it's going. Everything's fair, everything's clean, everything in the NHL is done by the books. I think you're the crazy one.
I don't really have a counter to everything is done by the books.
Oh, he's crazy. That's it. That's the show. Ryan Bolding is the crazy one.
I disagreed with you.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, you weren't even listening.
Sorry.
Dan, cut us off. Play us out.
I had fun today.
Yeah.
We're not coming back this next weekend, right? Memorial Day?
That's like 2 weeks from now.
Am I? Can you confirm that?
Somebody get this man some Ambien.
When is Memorial Day? It is
Memorial Day is not until the following.
So
Monday.
we are back.
Not next Monday.
We'll be back.
Not this
next
Monday.
week.
Not next Monday, but the Monday after that.
So basically, just in time for the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
We need to move Memorial Day up.
We'll figure it out.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week then. Hooray! Can't wait. Thanks for hanging out with us today. For Ryan, I'm JJ and Danny Bailey behind the glass. We'll be back next week. See you later.